What is going on, y'all? This is the Caveman, and I'm back with another episode of Goal Review. And today, you will be joining me from an aerial view of Drake's house. Why? Well, we're talking about the Maple Leafs, who happen to reside in Canada, which happens to be the birthplace of the greatest artist in the history of music, yes. But today, we are talking about Sergei Bobrovsky, and we're answering the big question: is Sergei Bobrovsky actually washed? And I also want to answer the question: does he get the Maple Leafs back into the playoffs and potentially beyond the first round? We know how cursed Toronto is when it comes to making it beyond the first round of the playoffs. So is making the playoffs even enough? Or is it the same old disappointment if they get back into the postseason yet lose in the first round like they seem to always end up doing? Quickly, I want to apologize for the hiatus. I intended to record a video before I went away to the Poconos for about a week, and I didn't get around to it. But we're back to the regularly scheduled program here, and if you enjoy said program, please do like, share, comment, subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. Leave all of your feedback down in the comment section below. I have a Discord server as well to further interact with myself and other members of the community. That's free to join in the description. I also plan to release some YouTube membership offerings very soon that will provide bonus content and a lot of other cool perks. I'm looking forward to rolling that out. But let's get into the goal review stuff. Now, if you're not sure how goal review works at all, it's very simple. I'm a goalie. I've been a goalie my entire life, and this is where I break down goalie film and grade every goal a goalie gave up in a given game to determine how many were truly their fault, how good or bad they really played, because the surface level shot numbers, the surface level goals against sometimes doesn't tell the whole story. So this is what the film breakdown is for, to get super in depth. Except this episode of Goal Review is going to work a little bit differently than ones in the past, because this is not a playoff series. I think every goal review I've done on this channel up to this point has been on a goalie that played in a postseason series in the recent Stanley Cup playoffs. But for Bobrovsky, obviously the Panthers did not. So in order to accurately answer the questions that I had posed earlier in the video, I had to build out a criteria. And the criteria goes as follows. So we're going to be looking at 8 different games. It's an 8-game sample size. And I broke the season up into 4 quarters and chose 2 games at a random point per quarter to see how his game kind of aged from start to finish of last year in order to answer the question, is Sergei Bobrovsky really washed? And I'm also going to look at his overall numbers. I'm going to put together the totals of the grades I have, like I typically do. And I want to acknowledge that an 8-game sample size of the 52 or 53 that he started probably isn't even enough, but I cannot sit here and make a 10-hour video over, a 35-game sample size. That's just, it would probably be longer than 10 hours. That's just not feasible. So 8 games is what we're going with in order to answer our big questions. Let's get right into it. The first game we're going to look at, the first game of the first quarter, if you will, this was against the Anaheim Ducks in Anaheim. This was on November 4th, 2025, and it was Bobrovsky's 10th start of the season. And when I randomly rolled this game, I had like the face of, if you know who I Show Speed is, it's the meme of his face where he's like he's got his face like ooh, like eek, like oh fuck, oh shit type of face. And that was the face I had when I rolled this. The completely random first roll, talking about if Bobrovsky was washed, was this game where he gave up 7 goals on 32 shots, man. Ooh, not a great start. But in any event, let's just watch what happens. So a breakaway is going to spring open up the middle of the ice. Not sure how that even happens, but it's a shot that's rifled 5-hole. Now, usually on breakaways, I tend to give out a grade of 1, maybe a 1.5, because at the end of the day, it's, one-on-one. It's best on best. A lot of the time, you just get beat by a better play, and that's the end of the conversation, right? You can break it down all you want, but at the end of the day, it's just shooter against goalie, and sometimes the shooter just wins. But in this situation, watching this goal Bob gave up, I kept watching it over and over from every angle, and I'm like, there's something off about this. There's something I feel like I don't like, and I can't pinpoint it. But I finally kept realizing I'm coming back to the same conclusion of no matter what angle I watched, it just didn't seem like Bob was ready for the shot or ready for the breakaway, which is odd considering that this breakaway developed basically at the red line. I mean, this is as close to like a shootout-esque breakaway as you're going to get in real time. Like, that's how far out Gauthier, kind of received this pass. So how could he not be ready? Honestly, I don't know. But the reasons why I believe this is because let's first look at this ice level front-facing camera that we have here. Right now, you can see Bob, his upper body is kind of sitting upright. His stick is off the ice, which is also a telltale sign. Like, at the higher levels, because of how much guys are moving around, they're taller. So, a lot of times when they're not crouched, when they're not ready to face the shot, their stick is off the ice. They're not constantly in their stance perfectly for the stick to be down. So those are the two telltale signs that tell me he's not really prepared for the shot. Mind you, at this very moment, Gauthier is still flying in. And if I kind of stop motion this through, Gauthier is just about to release the shot now. And at the same time, Bob is finally crouching. Like, Bob is finally getting to a point where he's prepared for this shot. Like, he begins his crouch about here-ish. And that's where you see the stick kind of get lower to the ice. The upper body start to lower in pad level. And right here he's ready, but the shot's already on its way. And he doesn't really have like that settling in period. Like I always say in all my videos that the most prepared goaltenders are the ones that get to a place on time and they kind of get like that second to settle into their location and then focus on the puck. Bob doesn't really have that. He gets crouched and prepared right now, and the shot is being released. Like, you typically don't want to be getting settled in, crouched, stick down, the very single second the shot is getting released. And you can see it goes directly through his 5-hole, and if we watch the other angle that also is from the front facing, this shot hits his stick. Like, it is going to, his stick is on the ice. It is on the ice. But it hits it and just blows right through it, because it's not got enough pressure on it. Bob didn't have enough time to really stamp his stick to the ice. Like, he just got set. So when you're just getting set and there's a quick shot, you're just not going to be ready for it, especially when it's to the 5-hole like that, where it's a lot more difficult to get down to the ice, right? Like, if you're just getting set, that means you're going to have to somehow get down to the ice that much faster, and you're just unable to do that. And when your stick, you're not strong on your stick because you're not prepared for the shot either, it's going to get blown through just like it does here. And I paired this conclusion from the front side with how I felt about the backside angle, which is where I ultimately decided, like, I don't think he was just ready for this, which is, like I said, so weird. So watching it from the behind the net view, Bob comes out and you can see him kind of with his left skate here come to a stop, and he's using the skate to stop his forward momentum. He doesn't need to get any more aggressive. He doesn't need to get any more ground. This is where he's going to begin what I call the ascent, the dissension, if that's even a word. So whenever a breakaway is coming in like this, a goaltender, probably is in his crease. He then starts his climb, what I'm going to call his climb to his spot to challenge the breakaway shooter. So Bob begins his climb, and then you'll see with that left foot right there, actually, is an even better stop motion frame, is where you'll see he begins his descent. And at this point, he starts skating backwards, and it's just maybe another second later when the shot comes. So even like his climb, his transition from the climb to the descend, whatever the word is, it's also just kind of late. Like, he just does everything just not quick enough. And Gauthier, even, I feel like if you want to take it to this extent, kind of shows shot. Like, he's skating in at a pretty high rate of speed, but when he does get to about the top of the circles, maybe a little bit above it, he stops skating. He starts to glide in, take a couple stick handles, and it's certainly looking like he's revving up. He's getting that shot meter prepared. Just feel like the whole process of getting prepared needed to be done just slightly sooner, and then you're more prepared for this shot. Like, I think it all starts with when he starts his descent, which then leads to him not crouching in time, not getting his stick down in time, and this puck just legitimately blows through his stick. He can't get his pads down in time because he literally just crouched. Like, he's not going to be able to get his knees down when he just crouched. So I'm going to give it a 2 for all of those reasons. You just got to start your descension sooner. You got to get your stick down quicker. And on top of the fact that this was a breakaway you saw from half of the ice worth of a distance from the red line, you need to be more prepared. You need to play this a lot quicker. yeah, not a fan. So I'm going to give this breakaway a 2, which is something I don't typically do. All right, goal number 2. Talk about a goal that is difficult to grade. This one also comes in the first period. And the puck is currently at the top of the blue line on this defenseman's stick. Now, just kind of watch what happens here. It's a pretty goofy goal. It gets sent down below the goal line, pops back out. It gets lost under bodies, and then all of a sudden it's getting sent over for a cross-ice one-timer that Bobrovsky very obviously had no idea was coming. Like, if you watch Bobrovsky, just Bobrovsky throughout this clip, he quite literally doesn't move from his post. He sees the puck, and then all of a sudden, once it goes into the bodies, he has no idea where it is, and there's a one-timer being rifled across the ice. On the power play, mind you. Now, the reason I say this one's hard to grade is because who am I to say what Bobrovsky saw? Who am I to put myself in Bobrovsky's skates to the point where I am literally telling you what I think he should be able to see? I am doing that to some degree in these videos, trying to put myself in the goalie's shoes to explain maybe what they were thinking, what they saw, but we are quite literally talking about what he literally saw. And right here, the puck goes into the corner, it bounces out, he deflects it with his stick into the bodies, and then, like I said, this is where he loses it. It's under Ekblad, it's under Kreider. It is just there. Can he see it right now? I don't know. Like, I was watching this clip back like 96 times, trying to figure out at what point could Bob have seen this puck. And this was one of those moments. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe Ekblad's hand is somehow perfectly blocking his vision to the puck. I don't know. Then, like, was it at this point when this Ducks player got in his way and he doesn't see Ekblad, like, punch it? That has to be what happened. And then at this point, the puck is through the bodies this way, and Bob has got 1, 2, 3 guys, and then plus Carlson kind of in his way. But it's like, man, is there any way he didn't see that at all? I mean, obviously he would have moved if he saw it. So it's like, how do you grade this? I can't grade like, you should have seen this, dude. Like, your eyesight needs to be better. Go to the eye dot. Like, I can't do that. So, for that reason, it's a fluky play. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Like I said, bottom line, if he saw it, he would have moved. That's it. And he didn't. So, I'm going to give it a 0.5. Often the goalie doesn't see the puck in a situation like that to the degree of not seeing a cross-ice one-timer developing in the slot. But, like I said, flukes happen. Flukes definitely happen. Goal number 3 comes on the Anaheim power play. And I want to make a note of something here. You can't see it. But it's only a 3-2 game right now. Well, I guess you can't see it. And there's only 4 minutes left in the second period. We have to get to 7 goals here. You're telling me he gives up 5 more goals from this point forward? That was the thought I was having watching this. I'm like, wait a second. The third goal doesn't come until the 4-minute 25 mark of the second period? What the fuck happened? Well, we'll get to that. But here's the third goal. So the puck goes from Carlson's stick to the bumper man or the outside of net player below the goal line, at the goal line. I talked about this in my last video. This is basically a set play at this point where you have a forward below the goal line or to one side of the net. You have his forehand toward the board so that he can catch it, turn his back inside so he can protect the puck, and then try to go between the legs. Or try to swivel and then throw it to the front. That's a set play. Anyway, it's a hectic situation. Bob is following it around. Puck gets passed up to the point, and then a pass down to the circle, and a one-timer is going to find its way in. This is a goal that I have a hard time blaming Bob for at all, right? Like, he comes out to see the pass. He's dealing with some traffic in front of him. Chris Kreider is an absolute menace when it comes to, screening the goaltender, a big-ass dude. So he's a problem. There's a forward of Florida's. I kept wanting to say Carolina. There's a Florida forward in the slot also taking some vision away. So he's dealing with all of that. And he's also looking around this side of the screen. This puck is going to get passed down to the opposite bottom of the circle. So Bob has to fight through all of the bodies just to see the pass. He doesn't know where it's going. And by the time he slides over to try and get there, he just is unable to fully get his hands on it. You can see him trying to fight through the screen here. He is super, super low to the ice. Like, this is classic Bob, right? He's so flexible. He's so nimble, able to move just from these very awkward low positions. And he gets a low here to try and see around Kreider. And that's probably the nail in the coffin for him, because he's then like in this weird situation where if you watch his head, he's kind of like swiveling his head to see the pass, and he hasn't even like begun a C cut yet or begun moving, and the puck is about 2 feet away from the stick of the player that takes the one-timer. So he's late. He tries to slide over, but because he's so low to the ice, his slide is low to the ice as well, which ends up being, you know, kind of what kills him. I'm not going to blame him for it. This is a 0.5 in my book. But, you know, if he's potentially able to slide a bit more upright, he might make the save, because he definitely does get a piece of it with his arm here. It just skims like the top part of his arm and then goes to the upper part of the net. And you can see his reaction. He throws his head back because he's like, shit, man, I almost actually fucking had that. So I guess the only thing that I feel like Bob could have done differently here is just knock it so damn low to the ice. And maybe then he'd be able to just C-cut and explode from a higher pad level. And when I say pad level, I'm referring to... Pad level is actually a football term that I feel like applies here. Pad level is speaking about the top part of the shoulder pads, the top part of the chest protector in the case of goaltenders, right? And the pad level is constantly changing for goaltenders. And here Bob goes from a higher pad level right about here, and then he really starts to squat down to try and look around the bodies, and his pad level lowers. It's harder for him when he's sliding to take his pad level from this low point to a higher point in the event the one-timer is, you know, a bit off the ice like this one was. So he's just only able to take away the bottom of the net. If it was a low shot, he makes the save. But it's a 0.5, though. It's a hectic play. He's screened. There's a scramble going on. It's a one-timer from a you know, a downward slope that's hard to get back to. Yeah, the only reason why it's a 0.5, if I haven't mentioned it already, is because he got a piece of it. So basically, he proved it was not impossible to stop. Goal number 4 is a developing 3-on-2 rush into the zone. This goal comes just like a minute and a half later, 2 minutes later, after that last one we just saw. And it's a shot that goes low to the pad, kicked out to the slot. It's a scramble, and it's dunked in the open net. Now, the easy first thing to point out here is, oh, Bob, maybe you shouldn't be kicking rebounds back out to the high slot. It's like, yeah, sure. While I agree, I want to give him some grace. Forsling does stick his stick in the shot lane like at the last second, and it creates like this lightsaber duel type effect as the shot's being thrown toward Bob, so that most definitely makes it more difficult to read, and you're kind of having to fight that off a bit more than you typically would if it was just a straight-on shot. He's not also the furthest away ever. I mean, he's at the top of the hash, so we're also talking about a shot that's not too far, so sometimes it's more difficult to read and react to the rebound properly. But gets kicked out to the slot, and that is what creates the scramble. Now, my bigger gripe is something that I've talked about before, and that's overreacting or overcorrecting, overadjusting, whatever word you want to use, to the puck in situations like this. Now, the puck goes into the high slot, and it does look like the Anaheim player is about to get his stick on it, so Bob is going to go flying over with a butterfly, and I feel like we probably could have avoided a full-on power push like that, maybe. Because what ends up happening is Bob is full-on power pushing this way when the puck's momentum is swinging that way, and it puts him out of position for this next opportunity, which then is going to get dunked into the open net. The more I watch it, I gave this a 1 when I wrote it down, but I don't know. I actually don't think he overreacted to it as much as I feel like he did when I wrote about this. Like, maybe... But I feel like a lot of goaltenders might do something similar here, because you're seeing, like, your eyes are here and all of this is right the fuck here. So I'm gonna cut him a bit more slack. I'm gonna make this one a 0.5, because even in the event he doesn't really power push too much, this puck still does slide to the lower part of the goal line, or near the goal line, and it would have been tough for him to get there anyways. Now, for goal number 5, mind you, we are now at the 8.5-minute mark of the third period, so we have 3 more goals to go from this point. The puck is on 65 stick at the point, and it just turns into a garbage net front point shot that ricochets to the back door, and it's dunked on the open net. Not really much you can ask Bob to do about this one. I watched it back a few times to try and see if there was anything. Behind the net angle shows, good movement, tracks the puck well. Wasn't late, wasn't sloppy, depth was good. We're also talking about, a double screen here. The Ducks are obviously cycling it around the zone, so there's a bit of chaos. Gauthier in front of him. I think that's Rodriguez who's also in front of him. He has the best sight line to the puck here that you could ask for. So he sees it the whole way. It's just unfortunate that Gauthier gets a piece of it. It gets deflected right in front of him and then goes to the back door where 65 scores the easiest goal of his NHL career, who's for some reason standing wide open in the slot like that without anybody around him, without a single white jersey near him. Like, it's 5-on-5 hockey right now, and somehow, some way, there's a mini 2-on-1 developing in front where this is allowed to happen. And the funniest part is, this is a forward. Like, it's not even a fucking defenseman. And that brings me to what I want to point out as the funniest part of this video. Like, where are the defensemen? Well, let's watch Ekblad. I think Ekblad on this play basically sums up, like, the dysfunction that the Panthers were playing with throughout the course of this season. So this pass it just got sent down to the bottom of the circle. Ekblad is the closest man. I don't know if they're playing man defense in a 5-on-5 situation or what, but Ekblad, if you watch him, he just starts chasing him. Like, why was he chasing him through number 11? Where was he going? Like, he just is like a bull seeing red. He has to get the puck carrier, has to chase the puck carrier. Why are you doing that? And all of a sudden, Ekblad, who is originally at the bottom of the circle, abandons his post to go all the way up to the point. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 guys where 2 of them are guarding nothing up here, which allows this 2-on-1 to be created out in front. Like, I don't know what Ekblad was doing, just chasing like that, if he was told to do that or what. But, yeah, I mean, when Ekblad goes up there like that and there's a miscommunication as far as, like, who needs to chase, when I think it should have just been 11, it creates this opportunity, right? Forsling is kind of forced to bounce outside. Rodriguez gets the man in front. This player is kind of fading toward the point man. If Ekblad's just down here still, that would probably allow Forsling to keep left, or keep right, if you will, and then Ekblad to be over here, and then 11 to be at the point. Like, I don't fucking know what Ekblad was fucking doing. That was, like, horrendous. But now for goal number 6, we have another very weird one on our hands here. The puck is down low right now. Seth Jones is chasing it. It gets shoveled around the wall, and then all of a sudden, the Ducks player turns and fires it toward the net, and it finds its way in. I think he just gets caught lacking, to be honest with you. Now, in his defense, if there is any, this is there's not much here that is threatening as far as shot goes. Like, it's getting collected around the wall. It's not very often that, a forward skates up the sidewall here and then decides at that point just to turn and shoot it. Like, it doesn't happen too often. So it is somewhat understandable why he might get caught off guard here, but I really think that's all it is. So at this point, he sees it. I was thinking maybe Kreider, like, gets in his line of sight, like, right as the shot comes, but he sees it clear as day right now. I think it's safe to say that it looks pretty obvious that the forward is turning and firing it. And then he turns and fires it back to the near side, and there is no deflection. I watched it back enough. It just beats him to that near side. And when you watch it back, what you'll realize is that Bob just reads the stick blade so incorrectly, right? Like, he shouldn't have to. If you watch Bob gets to a point where he's crouching here, and then he ends up kind of shifting / almost butterfly sliding into trying to make that save because he was, like, kind of really off his angle. I think he just misinterpreted the release point a bit. Because it's here, it ends up, like, the forward kind of continues his swivel, and the release point ends up being here. I'm going to do my damn best to draw a straight line to the near side here. I mean, that's not perfect, but it's close enough. Bob's belly button, nowhere close. Like, this brother is 50 yards offside. This brother is not on angle. This brother is not square. And yeah, man, like, you can even see the trajectory of the shot here, it is... I'm trying so hard to draw straight. It's going straight this way. And Bob is just not even close to square, man. And I think he, like I said, he just got caught lacking a bit. And it beats him to the near side. It's a 3. And for goal number 7, the last goal of game 1, it comes at the 5:20-ish, 5:15 mark of the third period. And I want to pay some mind to this freeze frame. And take a look at the 1, 2, 3 white shirts in pursuit of this puck compared to the 1 orange shirt that is forechecking. I'm sure you can guess what happens here. It's one blind pass behind the back, another blind pass behind the back, and then all of a sudden 24, who was the sole forechecker, earns his own turnover and then earns his goal, taking a shot and then battling for his rebound. Honestly, the most well-deserved goal I've seen in quite some time, if I'm being honest, as far as, like, individual effort goes. But before we talk about Bob, man, I mean, like, we do one blind behind-the-back pass, which, fine, at least it got there, but it was weak. And it kind of put 6 in a bit of a compromising position because there was another forechecker coming in. But what you don't need to do is follow it up with another blind behind-the-back-ish pass. Like, why are we doing 2 behind-the-back blind fucking passes without a damn clue of where it's truly going? Like, I get it, but maybe just swivel this along the wall next time, buddy. Who is this? Who's number 6? How about next time, number 6, we just grab this puck, right? And we just swivel it and throw it along the wall because we're under pressure. I don't know who the fuck you think you are, but you most definitely are not Cal McCarr. So let's never do that fuck shit again. Anyway, yeah, just then a rebound, jam in front, and a goal. For this one, I was kind of having a hard time because the shot comes in tight, right? Bob is playing this, I think, exactly how I would play it, exactly how I'd want a goalie to play it. In overlap, he's not attaching himself to the post and remaining deep. He is aggressive enough to cut down basically virtually anything. Like, if you give up a goal from right here, like, you got to do something horribly wrong. Like, he's being aggressive, cutting down all the angles. The shooter's at a bad angle to begin with. Like, it'd be damn hard to give up a goal from this spot. And he makes a nice first save. The puck then bounces out, you know, to the top of the crease here. And it's like, the only thing I can think of saying is just like, you got to be a little quicker. He just unfortunately doesn't get his stick there in time, beating the forward, who then is able to also swipe at it for the goal. It's just kind of an unfortunate bounce. It ends up in this no man's land situation where it's just kind of a race for the puck. I will give it a 1.5 because I think, you know, you just got to be faster, and I think you could be faster. It's kind of like a instinct and survival type of situation here, and Bob just lost the fight. But I do think he could have been quicker, and I also do think he attempts to go with what appears to be like, you know, a reach over the puck with his backhand, and then a push, and then a clearing back to the corner. So he kind of like pulls it out here, his stick, and then tries to swipe it and push it back against the grain, which just took too long. He tried to do that, and it took way too long. Now, I'm not going to act like he should have... Stupid freaking YouTube things. I'm not going to act like he should have done something different here. Like, I think in a perfect world, when you're in a scramble like that, you kind of just want to jab at it. But I can't say that I haven't found myself in a position like this where I am literally just trying to do the same thing, and I'm trying to shovel it to a non-dangerous area on the ice. Like, I've done that before. So that's just instinct. Like, maybe his instinct should have just told him to punch it, just to take his stick and punch it out, because he certainly would have beat the forward there if he just punched it versus pulling it over the puck and then trying to shove it. So it's all just instinctual stuff here that, you know, you can point to. Not really a teaching point. Like, maybe his instincts just need to be a little bit different in this situation, and we don't have a goal happening. To wrap up game number 1 of quarter number 1, he gave up 7 goals, which would have been a maximum of 21 points for the grade. He only graded out to an 8. So for giving up 7 goals, that is pretty damn good. I kind of felt like he just kind of caught more bad breaks than anything. I thought there were some very loose / weak net front presence type plays from the defenseman in front of him, like that 7th goal, the 2 behind-the-back passes that lead to that turnover. There was that 1 goal where Trouba is just shoveling it into the front of the net because Ekblad is skating around with his head cut off. There was the power play goal that was just that pass downward on that one-timer. Yeah, I feel like there were a few where it's like you don't really know what he could have done differently. The second goal was a weird one because that was that one where it gets lost in the bodies to his right, and then there's a cross-ice one-timer, and it's like, could Bob have seen it? Could he have not? Tough to say. So just it felt like a lot more bad breaks than anything, which ended up with the grade that I gave it, which, like I said, considering the stats, the surface level stats, is pretty damn good, and this is a good example of what goal review is truly for. But I did still have some questions about what he was seeing at times, what he was thinking and anticipating. I felt like he even might have been lazy to some capacity, but I think it's more so just like not making the best decisions or being as mentally sharp. So, yeah, I think, though, given the circumstances, an 8 out of 21 is pretty fucking good, if you ask me. I mean, they had a 3-2 lead with 6 minutes left in the second period. For them to lose with giving up 7 goals and no empty netters, a lot more had to go wrong than just the goaltender. So, good on Bob here, actually. Good on Bob. All right, let's move into game number 2 here, the second game of the first quarter. This game is against the Tampa Bay Lightning. It occurred on November 15th, 2025. It was his 13th start of the season, where, unlike the first game where he gave up 7 goals, he just gave up 2 in this one on 19 shots. And this first goal happened right off the face-off. The broadcast is doing one of those things where they just go to this very inconvenient camera angle that they think is super cool at the worst moment possible, and then something actually important happens, and they're at this goofy angle, and you really can't see it very well. Yeah, that's what happens here. Kucherov to Lilleberg, I think is his name. It beats Bobrovsky over the shoulder. Now, when I watched this goal for the first time, my first thought was, man, I am never not amazed by the depth of the talent at the NHL level. Like, the amount of good players there are that play high-level hockey that you really don't know much about is insane. And this goal was scored by a player named Emil Lilleberg. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm some, almanac or dictionary for hockey players nowadays. In fact, I would go as far as to say that I'm a lot more knowledgeable on the sport itself than I am like the players playing it. So maybe I'm unfamiliar with Emil's game, but I'm fairly confident this isn't a top 6 defenseman. I feel like he might not even be a top 7 defenseman in some circumstances. On top of the fact that this is not like the archetype of D-man that is driving offense. Like, he's not a Cal McCarr type of player, a Rasmus Dahlin type of defenseman. I think he's almost the opposite. He's just kind of like your skyscraper that stands on the blue line, super physical, got a hard shot, but isn't really driving offense, if you will. Yet he still has the skill set to crash down, receive this pass, and then corral it, and in the same breath, release it at lightning speed with a perfectly placed laser beam to the top right corner. Like, the amount of skill that requires coming from a player that's not even like, that's not even his game, is basically what I'm trying to suggest, is, my chair is just sinking me into the ground, is just insane. And it makes it super difficult for Bob to follow because of how fast this pass travels and then how quick the release follows and how perfect the shot is. I'm going to give it a 1 because at the end of the day, it is a stoppable shot. But it's so difficult because Bob is forced to, A, I think, kind of watch it through some traffic here. But B, more importantly, is that Emil is going to start traveling downward toward the circle, which means that this pass ends up going on that downward trajectory that I was kind of talking about in one of the goals in the first game. And when it travels at a downward trajectory like that, it makes it more difficult for the goalie to follow it in a way where he can still be aggressive. So if Bob wanted to come out and face the shot, which came from about here, I think, and he wanted to be aggressive, he would have to travel a pretty good distance to get to the top of the crease and maintain some aggression. So he trades off that aggression in return for less space to cover when traveling, which therefore means he is getting deeper in his crease so he can try to be there quicker and more on time. But it doesn't matter because the pass is still that fast, so he basically gets beat to it, and the shot and the release is just also equally as quick. So he's put in a position where he's forced to sacrifice aggression to try and be there on time, and he still isn't. If you watch his feet here, they never come to a complete stop. He's like drifting into his T-push. He like T-pushes and then drifts and shifts into a butterfly because he still isn't there on time. And he doesn't get that second to kind of like settle in and prepare for the shot. So like I said, he's sacrificing depth and aggression and being able to cut down an angle in return for cutting down how much space he has to travel. And ultimately, you know, he can't get there in time. And then the shot is so good that because he's so deep, he's unable to react to it. Like it is that hard, that quick, that well placed that when you're deeper in your net, your eyes have to do more of the heavy lifting, and it makes it more difficult. So he really gets handcuffed here is what I'm trying to say. All I'm trying to say is he really, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. If someone can inform me on Emil Lilleberg, and if I just don't know ball, let me know. But I don't think I'm way off in saying that this is not a guy that is like the next up-and-coming phenom on the blue line. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe I just don't know ball. Now for goal number 2, this is the last goal of the game. The puck is getting long flipped into the neutral zone, and it turns into a race for the puck where number 6 again makes another absolutely egregious play on it, and it leads to a high-profile scoring opportunity and a goal. I don't know who number 6 is. I've never heard of Sabrango before. Maybe I really just don't know this sport. Should I know who Sabrango is? Something tells me no, I shouldn't, and something tells me I don't need to know because he just continues to make the worst plays of all time. I'm not quite sure how he loses an edge here. All he has to do is pivot and start skating backward for the puck, but I think he tries to like chase it and knock it down with one hand. I don't know what he was even trying to do, but he loses an edge and gives up a breakaway in a situation where we probably don't need to be giving up a breakaway. Like, this could have just very easily been a race for the puck. But he's also not the only one that deserves some blame here. How many times in your life, if you've played hockey or even not, have you seen a player that's wearing the number 62 who stands at 6 feet, 6 inches tall and looks like this? How many times have you ever seen a player of this caliber, of this archetype, make some insane, crazy move on a breakaway? Probably never. Like, in my experience in my life, this is not the kind of player that I'm feeling too threatened by on a breakaway because they just don't have a bag. You know, they're bringing more physicality, more intimidation to the sport than they are finesse, than they are speed, than they are hands. You know, you're probably not going to get anything too crazy here. And lo and behold, he literally just walks in, pulls it to the backhand after somewhat faking shot, and Bob you just can't get there. We don't get the best camera angles of this goal. We don't get a behind the net view, which really sucks. Again, it almost feels like, it's tough to say because the camera angles are bad, but it almost looks like he doesn't start his descent after his climb fast enough. Because again, we look at his skate, right? And talking about the breakaway goal he gave up in the last game, you can tell when he kind of starts to begin his descent after his climb, when that one skate kind of angles, it's kind of flashing that boot outward, which kind of indicates to me he's just starting his descent. And you can even see that at this point, he's getting lower and lower to the ice as he's getting more and more prepared for the shot, which in his defense, Finley does fake. Bob ends up almost, you know, kind of flat-footed to where he's really having to push to try and just get to the spot to follow the puck versus being able to descend with it and travel with it as he pulls it to his backhand. Like, he doesn't get beat under the arm or anything. Bob is just unable to get his push back to the post because he just didn't get enough of a back skate going. He didn't gather any momentum. And whether that's because his descent was started too soon, or his descent wasn't started soon enough, and he didn't start getting enough momentum in his back skate, or if that's because he really got froze up by the shot fake, it's hard to say. But I just kind of feel like somewhere deep down in my heart, we just can't be getting beat out by a move like this from a guy wearing number 62, bro. Bob just is unable to read it. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a physical issue that he couldn't get to that puck. He just doesn't read it properly. So I'm going to give it a 1.5. For this second game here, as mentioned before, it was his 13th start of the season against the Lightning on November 15th, 2025, where he gave up 2 goals on 19 shots. His overall grade here is going to be a 2.5 out of 6. While I feel like that grade isn't amazing, the 2 opportunities that he dealt with were high profile. There were some saves he made in this game that I obviously don't include in a video like this that were pretty solid, even though the shot volume wasn't high. So all that to say, he definitely played better, I think, in this game than the first game, but not by much. Not by much. There just weren't as many offensive opportunities for him to flub on as there were in the first game. Like, I still feel like there were some things going on in this game that I was like, I don't love that, such as the second goal. But because of the low level of opportunities that were presented to him, he was able to fend off enough, and it limited the amount of mistakes he could make. So, slightly better, maybe, but anyway, 2.5 out of 6 is where I settled on with game number 2 here. Now for game number 3, or aka the first game of the second quarter, we are jumping to the start of December. This is a game against his current team now, the Toronto Maple Leafs, on December 2nd, 2025. This would be his 18th start of the year, where he gave up 3 goals on 30 shots in another loss. The puck is going to start down low below the goal line, and it gets sent out to the point, thrown toward the net, and it gets through Bob thanks to the screen provided in front. This one is a bit fascinating. I'm going to enjoy talking about it. So, as obviously mentioned, it starts below the goal line. Bob is in an RVH, which is completely cool. He gets up to travel out to follow the shot at the point. And like I said before, we're dealing with some pretty heavy traffic here. A lot of chaos in front of him. He's trying to track the puck, trying to see its release point. But what he does right before the shot is what I don't like. Now, there's really not much he could have done to see it any more than he does. But what you'll notice is that once he really loses sight of it and he knows the shot is coming, he goes from toes top of crease to slowly starting to drift backwards as he knows the shot is coming. And I hate that. Look at where he ends up versus where he was. He was up here. He ends up about down here as the shot's currently going by him. It's like this little blur here. He gets deeper. Like, the more he realizes the shot's coming and he doesn't see it, he just begins this very slow drift backward. And the reason why I don't like this is because when you can't see the puck, the last thing you want to do is make yourself smaller by, sinking into your crease, because you're not going to be able to react to it if you can't see it. I say it all the time. When you put yourself in a position where you're deeper in your net, you're relying more on your eyes and your reactions than you are your angles and your positioning. And I don't know why he started that slight drift, but I also am not going to go as far as to say that it would have made a difference either. It's just like, for someone like me, a goalie like me, when there's something going on at the point and I really can't see it very well, and I can see, there's some traffic in front where there's potentially a deflection coming, or at least an attempted deflection, the last thing I want to do is get deeper in my net. I personally speaking, whether right or wrong, try to get even more aggressive in this case. Now, this player is way too far out to, get on his back or something, but I will try to step out a little bit further to try and cut down the possibilities of a potential deflection. So, I don't love that for some reason he just began to sink. But then again, he doesn't get too deep to the point where I feel like it makes too much of a difference. I don't know if he just stays where he is, maybe it just randomly hits him. But I can say with confidence that if instead of drifting backward and he, C-cuts forward and he kind of is going from toes top of crease to heels top of crease, then there's a great chance he might just happen to get his blocker on it. He didn't drift to his goal line either, so I'm not going to give him too much shit for it. I'm going to give it a 1. Now for the second goal of 3, we have another fumbling moron on defense, turning it over. It's kind of juggling its way to the defenseman. He fans on the clearance, and it leads to a perfect opportunity for a pick play for the 2-on-2 to turn into a 2-on-1 in front-ish. And it gets passed out to that guy in front, and he's able to stick handle past Bob right on the doorstep. I do feel like if you're Bob, we could have been a little bit more patient in our approach here. So no doubt that Bob is aware of the stick blade threat that is right in front, right? Like in his mind, especially with the way the stick is pulled very far out for McMahon, I think that is, it's going to be difficult for him to recollect it and take a shot that is amazing. You know what I mean? So it's most likely going to go to that far side, or it's going to go to the stick blade of Joshua. So if you're Bob in this situation, you're cheating this a bit. It ends up getting passed to Joshua, of course, and while it is possible that he could have simply deflected it toward the net, which is definitely what Bob is banking on, he just completely shifts down into a butterfly, and it puts him completely out of position and makes Joshua's life easy in front when he can just catch the pass and then pull it around him. What could happen here is something that we call holding your edges. Now, like I said, there is a strong possibility that Bob is just banking on this to be a pass to the front that Joshua deflects on net, but I do feel like it wouldn't be unreadable in Bob's case to recognize that he might try to catch this and pull it back to the short side. And he also, not only does he just butterfly and, blow his edges completely, he shifts into it. So he begins drifting that way, which makes it even more difficult for him to, even recover at all. He just gets fucked because he gets impatient or he loses his edges. Like we always say as goaltenders, what you want to do is you want to be on your feet as much as possible. You want to stay on your feet until you absolutely have to drop. You want to hold your edges for as long as you can. And if you watch my Allmark video, there was a save he made that was semi-similar, where it was a 2-on-1, pretty much the same spot on the ice. There was one player here, and it was a 2-on-0. It was these two guys against Allmark, and they were passing it, they passed it between each other a time or two, and Allmark read it the whole way. He stayed on his feet until he absolutely had to drop and make a save that he made look extremely easy because he held his edges. Bob, in this case, doesn't, and this is very easily what Allmark could have looked like in the case that he didn't hold his edges either. Bottom line is it's not an unreadable play. I think it definitely could have been stopped, but it's also a pretty nice play on Joshua's part, so I don't want to discount that either. And the third and final goal of this game, it's a race for the puck into the Florida end, and Forsling actually wins it. He just has no help along the wall, and it ends up getting thrown to the net. It's bobbling, bouncing around, and it gets dunked in because of the funny bounces that occur. Cut and dry, this is just a dumb hockey goal. I watched it as many times as I could to see if there's anything Bob could have done differently, but this initial rifling gets deflected, and it creates this slow dribble onto the net, and Ekblad's weak ass gets stick lifted, and it creates a mad chaos in front, and it ends up getting, completely kicked from left to right. So as Bob is following it in the skates of his defenseman, it gets kicked back out to the right, and it's an easy tap-in because Bob is trying to follow the puck. And two of his defensemen are, holding hands instead of actually covering anybody or getting the damn thing. Take a wild guess who ends up with the puck here between these four players. Not Bob, not that defenseman, of course. It's the damn Leafs player. So it's a 0. I watched this a lot. I didn't really feel like there was anything he could have done differently. Just really ugly, goofy bounces that happen in front that are too quick to really ask any human being to account for. Now, I can safely say that this is definitely the best game that Bob has played that we have watched up to this point. So we're improving. I will say as much. He graded a 2 out of 9 in this game. As I mentioned before, the third goal was a complete fluke. The shot from the point was tough to see. And then the second goal was, a turnover by his defenseman and that in tight, quick opportunity. And I gave him a 2 out of 9. It was a game where there were a few impressive saves. Also, there was, I think the best save he made up to this point happened in this game. Maybe I should start including them, but he made a crazy save on a 2-on-1 in this game at some point that I really thought was tremendous, that made me realize, like, the more and more I watch him, I'm like, this guy hasn't lost a step physically. Like, he's still moving. And there weren't any goals here that I felt like were too egregious. All right, now for game number 4, the final game of quarter number 2, if you will. This one against the Utah Mammoth on December 10th, 2025, his 21st start of the season, where he gave up 3 goals on 30 shots in a win. This is the first win for Bob we are covering. So clap it up for Bob. We're going to talk about a win here. 3 goals on 30 shots is the exact stat line from last game, funny enough. And it's, again, the first goal of this game is going to be a player getting behind the defenseman on a breakaway. And again, the shot is quick to the 5-hole, beating Bob clean. Out of the 4 games I watched so far, this is actually the 3rd breakaway that he has had face him in these 4 games. And they've all been in this video because he's been scored on every single one of them. And as I just mentioned, this is, again, a quick release wrister to the 5-hole. And it catches him. And kind of some similar things going on with the climb from the crease and then the dissension. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel consistent. Here, I feel like he gets to his summit after climbing, and then he almost, like, sits too long before he begins his descent again. I know I've talked about that before, where I feel like his descent doesn't start soon enough and he doesn't get enough backwards momentum, etc., etc. This is, again, another goal where I feel like the descent doesn't start fast enough. And number 11 here, Gunther, I think it was, however you pronounce his name, he catches him off guard. And what you'll notice is that he's kind of flat-footed here, and Gunther's, flying toward him. And if you watch his legs, you can see they kind of wiggle right there because he starts his descent a bit late compared to how fast the forward is moving. So I think he kind of ends up in like a oh shit situation. And right here you'll see the right foot C-cut and then the left foot follow. And there's 2 wiggles, and the shot comes right after that second wiggle of his left leg. Wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle 1, wiggle 2. Just watch right leg wiggle 1, left leg wiggle 2. And right there, when that second leg wiggles is when the shot is released. His legs are wider because he's starting to move back, and that's when it's fired toward his 5-hole, toward that leg. So, again, we find ourselves in a situation where he is kind of starting that descent late. Here he's wiggling himself into gear to try and keep up with the speed of Gunther, and it kind of forces this exaggerated like kickstarting motion to try to start his back skate, and it costs him because he's not ready. I just feel like there's not a consistent approach with how he approaches these breakaways, really. I feel like it's all different. I feel like the only thing similar is that he just doesn't seem to be prepared for any of these shots because it's like almost the timing of when he's starting to control the gap between him and the forward is always just too late or it's off, and he gets caught off guard. I don't think this one goes through his stick. I think it misses his stick. Like, that just goes to show how wide he got his legs because the puck goes 5-hole, but it misses his stick even though it's in position. Yeah. I'm going to give this one a 1.5. Goal number 2. You'll never believe this. You will never believe what happens on this goal. It's another breakaway by the same player, number 11, Gunther, and guess where the puck goes? It goes between his legs. He gets beat in the 5-hole. Again, it's not a coincidence, bro. Like, this is not a coincidence that we keep seeing this happen to him. There is something about his climb from his crease to the timing of his descent that fucks him up. And I'm going to show you again how, even though this wasn't a quick wrister or a quick shot, how it disrupts him. How he almost struggles to determine how fast he should be getting depth, or struggles to determine when he should start getting depth. Look at this. So this one is even more interesting because I feel like he gets to his summit almost too early, to the point where if you watch Bob at the bottom of the screen here, he almost is sitting there for a period of time. Like, right now, I'm going to freeze it because we can see his feet. Watch. They just sit there waiting for Gunther, or whoever it is. I know I'm going to get corrected in the comment section, but watch Bob's feet. There is a good, split second there where he's just standing. And who knows when he really gets there because the behind the camera angle doesn't show you. But he is just sitting at his summit, flat-footed for a decent amount of time, just simply waiting for Gunther to come in. And because he's just standing flat-footed, he again has to do what he did on the last goal and kind of kick his feet into gear. What does that require? It requires the wiggles. Watch the exaggerated wiggles. 1, 2. We get 2 exaggerated wiggles that make his legs even wider, even further apart. And all of a sudden, his legs are wide open. They're spreading open because of how wide he makes them. Because he gets in a position where he starts his descent too late. So he has to really move his legs to get his descent to move quicker. And that opens his legs all at the same time. This is not a coincidence. This is not a coincidence. Like, how do you fix it? I don't know. Like, I think if you're Bob in this situation, like maybe if you're so worried about like your depth, like I don't know, maybe you just come out further so that you're forced to start descending faster, or maybe you just need to learn gap control better, man. You need to do a better job of reading the speed of the shooter so you don't feel like you have to almost overcompensate when they do get close to you. Like, that's all it comes down to. Is I feel like he finds himself in these situations where he's handcuffed to some degree, forcing him to be like, oh fuck, I gotta really get moving now, and it's just too late. And because he's overcompensating, because he starts moving too late, it opens his legs up. This is not a coincidence, dude. And it's not even like his stick is like horrendously out of position either. Like, there, it's a nice move. That move beats the 5-volt pretty frequently. But it's not like he's like holding it behind his head or something crazy. Like, he gets opened up enough because it's almost like he's misreading the gap, misjudging the speed. With all that said, though, this is a 1.5 on my chart because it's another breakaway. It's another nice move. Now for the third and final goal of this game, and one more note I want to mention about the last goal. That's 4 breakaways I think I saw across all of the games I'd watched so far, and he hadn't stopped a single one of them. Anyway, here's goal number 3, and it's down low right now in the left corner here, and we'll see how it kind of develops. It's a bit chaotic. Utah has full possession. Florida's just trying to play conservative. It gets thrown to the net and bounced around, and all of a sudden, there's a wide open tap-in occurring. Let's see what happens behind the net. So, I want you to be the judge of this, because it's something that I feel like you wouldn't realize if you weren't a goalie that did shit like this, or if you just weren't a goalie at all. So, watching from behind the net view, this is what happens. It gets thrown to the point, and if you notice, Bobrovsky's stick is kind of stuck under this Utah player's leg, and it kind of like throws Bob off of his balance. Like, you can see he's in this weird, like, he looks like a bug or something, and he's off balance as the shot's coming. Like, the shot's coming over here. He's over here fucking around trying to get in position, which forces him to, overcorrect and slide, and then he's unable to get back to the rebound. Now, this goal could be one of 2 things. It could be like a 0.5 or a 1, or it could be a 3. And I have it graded right in between there at 1.5, but I feel like I might change that by the end of me talking about this. So what I want to first talk about is Bobrovsky's stick. So Bobrovsky, following it from right post to left post, right? He somehow, it's hard to see, but ends up with his stick. This is kind of the first glimpse of it you get. Right behind the Utah player's, like, knee, right? And then he kind of, like, starts to turn it. And then you can kind of see it. Like, right now, it ends up behind the Utah player's leg, but it's flat against his leg. It's, like, flush against his leg, if you will. But then, you'll kind of see it kind of turns a little bit. It kind of turns. And then you'll see Bob pull. You'll see Bob pull. And then he takes the stick out. Do you think he did this on purpose? Do you think Bob was trying to fuck with that player to get him out of his crease? Because this is something that, I dabble in some scummery around the front of the net, just as your average hockey player does. When you get to the nitty-gritty parts of the crease, that's your space. That's your land, right? You know, you throw a punch with your blocker, you'll slash someone on the back of the ankles, you'll punch with your glove on someone's numbers. Like, you do these things. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for a goalie to do something like this, especially when he's this guy is deep in his crease. Like, he is damn near the center of his crease. So I have a feeling Bob was trying to trip him. And because it's like, there's no way he didn't have enough time to pull his stick out of here in time. Because right now he's in the motion of, like, putting his stick behind that player's leg. And the puck is still, just coming out from behind the goal line. Like, at this point, he had enough time to pull it free. But he wanted to get that extra pull to try and trip him. Like, he absolutely knew, right here, he knew that his stick was not in a good position. He knew that it was stuck behind that Utah player's leg. If he was really, really trying to get his stick back, what do you think he would have done? He would have done exactly what he did when he did retrieve his stick, which is pull it around the Utah player's leg and then get it back. I think he did it on purpose. And that ends up putting him out of position, way out of position, to a point where he has to feel like he's like damn near power push, butterfly sliding into this shot. And then, because he overcorrects for the initial shot because he was fucking around in the crease, he has to then try to power push and get there to the rebound. Excuse me. But of course he can't. I 100% believe that's what Bob was doing here. Now that in my notes, I was kind of like, maybe he was, but I don't know. He's absolutely doing it. And he gets punished for it. He gets really, really punished for it to a point where I feel like I got to grade this higher than a 1.5. Like, I think I'm going to go as high as a 2.5 because at the end of the day, we don't know what would have really happened if he plays it somewhat differently, but I know for a fact what did happen is that he put himself out of position trying to, do some net front slidey shit. Like, I'm sorry. I know just as much as anybody what he's trying to do here. Like, to the naked eye, it might look like he just got his stick stuck. But there is no doubt that he knew where his stick was and that it was out of position from this very moment. I'd love to ask him. This is one of those, every single goal review I do, there's at least one goal or at least one moment where I really want to ask the goalie what happened or what he was doing, what he was thinking. And this is that one for this video. He sacrificed positioning for the sake of, giving somebody a little stick, and it fucked him. Karma's a bitch. Karma's a bitch, as they say. So that will wrap up game number 4, and after my adjustment to my grade on goal number 3 from a 1.5 to a 2.5, that bumps his grade up to a 5.5 out of 9. And there is a save in this game that is a really big one, but otherwise, I just feel like we have a handful of goals here that definitely were stoppable. And, they do walk out with a win, but it also was one of those games where it didn't feel like he was tested too much, and he didn't make any timely big, like he made one, really big save, but other than that, there weren't any other timely saves or really any other big saves. And I think he absolutely could have had all 3 of these and probably should have had at least one of them. So compared to, I feel like the last couple games, he's been better, but this game, I feel like he definitely takes a step back, and there are a lot of tendencies rearing their ugly head, as we progress through the halfway point now. We're going to be moving past the halfway point. So 5.5 out of 9 is where I'm at. And I also want to point out my shirt. This girl is going to be a mommy. Don't ask. You can ask. I don't know why I'm wearing this. First game of quarter number 3. Game number 5, a.k.a. This is against the Ottawa Senators. This is the first game of 2026 we're looking at. It happened on January 10th. This was his 31st start of the season, where he gave up just 2 goals, but on just 19 shots in another win. And here's the first goal. There's not much to write home about when it comes to this one. It cycled down low, and yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things that happens, bro. The player circles around from the corner. He turns face to his forehand, and he flubs it in the air. Bob punches it, and then he rolls it down his own back. Shit happens, bro. Like, there's nothing you can really do to explain this one. This is one of those goals that you watch in film that you don't talk about. You look at it and you're like, fuck, man. What the hell was I doing? That can't happen. And you move on. You move on with your life. Like, there's no talking point. There's no teaching point. It's a fluky goal. It's a silly goal. It's a goal that definitely is a 3 because it was going to just go through the crease had he not touched it. But, yeah, it's a 3. But, you know, shit happens. We cry in the moment, but we laugh later. This goal is late in the third period, and late as in a minute and 48 seconds, and it's an empty net for the Senators. So they're pushing to try and tie the game down 2 right now. The puck's at the point, at the right side point, from our perspective at least. Sent over, down to the half wall, thrown to the net, and Batherson does deflect this to the roof. I gotta be honest, this is a dog shit shot. I gotta be honest, this is a dog shit shot selection in this moment, but I guess you gotta throw it to the net, man. You gotta score, you're down 2, so how bad is it really? Because it went in the net. But it's on the half wall right now. I mean, Bob is about as square to it as you need to be. I think his depth is fine. He's playing a bit of an overlap. It hits Batherson's stick and it deflects high. Like, it's hard to kind of see, but it most definitely does get touched. It's going, you know, at like waist level right now, probably even lower. That's the kind of shot it is. And then all of a sudden it's literally flailing into the rooftop. So another goal I didn't have really much to talk about. Another kind of fluky goal. I didn't think his depth was bad. I didn't think he was off angle. I didn't think there was really much he could have done differently other than maybe play the overlap a bit more to the right. But then again, you don't want to sacrifice ground to the inside because of a rebound. Then you're too far over. So I feel like his angle is good enough for this position. And it's just a sick-ass deflection, really. Game 5 was a quick one. There's not much to write home about here. He wasn't asked to do very much. He only had 19 shots on him, and there weren't that many high-profile opportunities. You know, Ottawa wasn't the most juiced-up offensive team of all time this year, and I think this was one of those games where that showed. He made a few nice saves, but other than the first goal, which was that fluky 3, I didn't think he could have done anything on the second one, so that was a 0. So he grades out to a 3 out of 6, but he really didn't do much that hindered the team. So it's kind of a nothing burger. It's not really the most fun game to do when looking at a video like this, but nothing stood out as bad. Nothing stood out as that crazy. So when talking about whether or not he's washed, I feel like there's probably a win. It's probably a win in all reality, even if it is a 3 out of 6. I'd call it a light 3 out of 6 because that's one of those goals that like you absolutely cannot let in. But that's like shit just does happen. It just does. So I don't think that's a product of bad play. I don't think that means he's a bad goalie. Goals like this go in on every single goaltender that's ever played the position ever. As long as it's not happening every other game, it's okay. So it's like this is like the most empty 3 of all time to some degree. But if you're the goalie, I will say you feel terrible about it. Like you try to move on, but you think about this kind of goal a lot more than you think about any other one because it's just that bad. Now on to game number 6, a.k.a. the second game of quarter 3 against my Buffalo Sabres. This was played on February 2nd, 2026, his 38th start of the season, where he gave up, wait for it, 5 goals on 20 shots. Oof. That one hurt to say out loud. 5 goals on 20 shots in the loss after looking at 2 straight wins. We are going back to the losing column, and from the surface, it doesn't look pretty. But that's what the series is for. Let's be optimistic. And the first goal is going to come off of the stick of Tage Thompson, one of the best natural goal scorers in hockey. He is going to hold the puck and then do what he does best and just rifle, and I mean rifle a shot with a quick wrister. And then Alex Tuch ends up doing like some awkward yoga over Bob, kind of teabagging him a little bit. Not really. This is a tough one because it kind of relates to one of the goals we talked about earlier in the video, that one fluky goal where he lost complete sight of it, and I'm sitting there saying, well, I can say all I want that he has to somehow find it, but who am I to put myself at ice level to that extent and suggest what he should have versus shouldn't have seen? And I kind of feel the same about this one to some degree. It's kind of difficult to figure out what he truly could see as this puck is being broken in. So he knows Tage has it, no doubt. But there is a body in front. There's another body that's about to kind of conflict. And Tage does this thing where he kind of like spins back. And it looks like a draw pass here would make complete sense. I don't know if this necessarily influences Bob or not. I don't know if he gets confused or maybe his brain lacks behind a little bit because he thinks this is going to get dropped for this forward to continue down. But Tage maintains it. And he's all of a sudden crossing toward the slot. And again, who am I to say what Bob can versus can't see? I think there's no doubt with all the moving parts, with the deception, with the bodies in front of him, that he's certainly just late to reacting to a shot like this, especially when it's as good of a shot as it is. I mean, like, you can barely see the puck right beside this Florida forward. And like, Bob maybe saw the release, maybe saw a bit of it, but it is just a combination of chaos and a wicked wrister that he doesn't even need to stick handle or corral. That just like that release is so disgusting, man. Like, what are you doing about that? What do you really do about that? Like, maybe you could be a little bit further out, but he also was in a situation where there's bodies in front of him. He doesn't really have much more ground to work with, so he's toes top of crease. He's about at the depth as I would want him to be, especially when he can't really go any further. Yeah, it's just a tough one to stop. I'm going to give it a 1. Goal number 2. We are nearing the end of the first period. The puck gets shoveled to the red line, and all of a sudden we have a 4-on-1. Yep, that's what I said out loud. We have a 1, 2, 3, 4-on-1 developing as they enter the offensive zone. Certainly not ideal. Certainly not ideal. And then it's passed to the back door and tipped in the net. Believe it or not, though, and this might sound crazy, so walk with me here. I actually think this might be an easier save to make than the last one, which, you know, when talking about a 4-on-1 and a backdoor tip-in for the goal, it's like, how could you possibly conceptualize that this is somehow an easier save than the last one? Now, I want to preface by saying I think easier is a strong word. It's just the only word I feel like I have in my vocabulary to encapsulate how I feel. So it's not easier by, like, a country mile or anything, or, you know, easier by even anything bigger than a slight margin. But when you compare a far-out shot to a backdoor tip-in on a 4-on-1, you would think there's no way they're even in the same stratosphere of difficulty. But I think they are, and I actually think there's an easier read to make on this goal. So let's watch it from the top here. Bob is at the far right corner from our perspective of his crease, because Alex Tuck originally had it. He darts it across the blue line to, I think it's Zach Benson, whoever it is. And that forces him to go from one top corner all the way to the other. So he's forced to travel a pretty far distance. And then what ends up happening is that this pass gets sent back down to the back door to Krebs. But I'll tell you right now, despite all of that distance he has to travel, I feel like Bob could have done a better job at cheating it a little bit. When you're in a 4-on-1 situation like this, or an odd man rush where you're heavily outnumbered, what do you want to do? You want to anticipate. You want to play deeper. You know what these guys want to do. They want to pass. They want to get the best shot possible. And it's always a cross-ice one-timer, a cross-ice, backdoor pass. It's always cross-ice. It's always one more pass with these guys. And I feel like Bob does a poor job of reading the fact that his defenseman is diving toward the puck carrier, which gives this guy one of two options. Either drop to Tage, or he can send it to the net, where Bob absolutely no doubt knows that Peyton Krebs is crashing to. So for him not to be able to get over there when it, in some capacity, feels like the only play, it's Dahlin, by the way, I feel like we could have done a better job at getting there. Like, maybe we see our defensemen selling out to this degree. We don't need to be toes top of crease. Maybe we are a couple inches deeper here, so that we don't have to travel nearly as far to the back door when this pass is made. But I'm fairly confident that this is a situation where a pass is pretty imminent. It reads past the way Dahlin kind of walks it in. He's getting forced to the outside. Like, this reads past pretty heavily, given what options Dahlin had left. So while it is a nice deflection to be able to squeak it by Bob as close to this post as possible, and it's not like he doesn't get there at all, it just feels like a play that when you're a goalie in these particular scenarios, you have to cheat. Something has to give. You have to be reading the play a little bit better because, like I said, these guys want to get their backdoor passes. These guys want to throw across ice and get the best look they possibly can. So I feel like he just could have done a number of things better when it comes to reading where that pass was going to go and preparing for it, cheating for it. Because you are basically by yourself at that point. You're going to have to cut some corners if you want to make a big save like this. I don't want to watch this one. Out of respect for Bob, I feel like I should leave this goal out. But out of respect for my exercise here, I can't. Not good. Anyway, the puck is currently down here in the Sabres' end. I usually cut these videos short enough to where we're not watching play for an extended amount of time before the goal. So something pretty crazy has to happen here for it to go from this point on the ice to a goal. So Power sends it down the ice, and yeah, I feel like that kind of speaks for itself. I feel like that play kind of speaks for itself. It really does. Quite frankly, the worst decision I think I've ever seen a goalie make in my life. Like, let's approach it at least from the perspective of what you do in a situation like this. So if you're a goalie and you see a race for the puck that is going semi near you in your end, your defenseman or your forward isn't going to be the first one to get it. It's going to be the opposing team that gets it, and it's a free puck. The only thing you can't do if you're going to go for it is hesitate. You have to either do it or don't, because if you hesitate, you're either going to be beat to the puck, or you're going to start skating out, and then you're going to stop, and then you're going to try to get back in the net. You're going to be discombobulated. You're going to be out of position. You're going to be freaking out. You're going to be all frazzled, and you're probably going to get scored on anyway. So if you're going to do it, you got to fucking do it. That's the bottom line. That only applies, though, when you actually have a chance at getting the fucking puck. Like, he had no fucking chance. Like, tell me right now, if you had to put money down on who's going to win this race to the puck, who the hell is it going to be? Is it going to be Ryan McLeod, one of the fastest skaters on the fastest skater on the Sabres, one of the faster players in the league, or Sergei Bobrovsky at the right page of 37? Who's going to win this race when the puck is probably skirting to like this point of the defensive zone? Who's winning that? Not Bob. Like, I don't know what in God's name made him think that he was somehow going to beat him at like the puck, the cross section of the puck between when he was going to reach it and when he could have reached it was about there. How the fuck did Bob think he was going to beat McLeod to this spot? Like, this is some Alzheimer's like fucking old man dementia type shit. I don't know what the fuck he thought he was doing there. Like, every single thing about this is just such a bad decision. Not only are you nowhere near in position to be able to get to this puck first, you're also, like I said, chasing McLeod, but you're also 37! Stay in your net! Like, you're 37! Even in the event that you could get to this, you're going to be going head on into a potential collision. You're 37! You don't need to be getting into collisions damn near at the fucking blue line over a free puck at the age of 37. Like, nothing about this is justified. Nothing about this makes any sort of sense at all. At all. Like, he got beat so bad to this puck that he had to, like, he's like, oh, fuck. He had to start, like, poke checking to try and just, like, get him. But he was so late to it that he didn't even get near the stick blade or the puck. He ends up whacking McLeod's leg because he's able to get to the puck faster and turn away from him. That is some 37-year-old man dementia shit. It wasn't even a race, bro. Like, I can't even talk about this from the perspective of like what you would do in a situation like this when it applies, because it doesn't apply. There was no reason for him to get out of his net at all. Like, at all. I have no words. This is a lot different than the goal that he blockered up and then it rolled down his back. That was just a fluke. This was completely fucking preventable. This is just brain dead stupid. Now on to goal number 4. We have a Sabre power play. 5 minutes have been depleted in the third period. It's a 3-3 game right now. And the puck is actively at the blue line, right? Let's watch what happens, because it's a bit of a goofy goal when you really break it down. But it gets thrown to the half wall, sent down deep, and then it's a quick pass from down low up high that gets reamed by... Oh, man, why can I never remember his fucking name? Jason Zucker. I can never I always want to say Brian Rust for some reason when I see Jason Zucker. I don't know why. What happens here, though, when you take a closer look at it, is quite unfortunate if you're Bob. Bob sees Josh Doan going behind the net, right? And he understands that Zucker is somewhat here on the near side, so there's a chance that he could try a pass. So just like any goaltender would do that has a brain, they're going to stick their stick out in the passing lane to potentially, you know, prevent or dissuade any pass to this side of the net. But in doing so, while sticking his stick out, Ekblad skates through his stick, knocks it out of his hand, which definitely completely discombobulates him, which at the same moment, he's like, oh shit, there's a pass coming, and he just has no way to recollect himself and try to make the save. Like, he's so behind the play that when he loses his stick, he just tries to... He goes away from the puck. Like, he's so discombobulated, so behind the play that he tries to lean into an RVH when he sees this pass come out and lean into his post when this shot gets sent to the far side. Like, he was literally just doing whatever he could to survive. And, you know, I don't want to say he gets out of the way, but he leans the wrong way because he just doesn't know what's happening because of the chaos that Ekblad caused. I almost want to give it a 0.5, but I think I'm going to stick with a 1. What I do want to point out, though, is how much of a fucking circus this penalty kill is. Like, watching Bob in this game, already a one-man circus. Aaron Ekblad makes it a full circus. This is not the first time in this video I'm going to point out Aaron Ekblad skating around like a bull seeing red. For absolutely no fucking reason, mind you. I have no idea why he does this. But we're going to see the puck right now go to Dahlin at the point, right? Ekblad... Bottom of the dot. This is where Ekblad is. Watch Ekblad. He goes from the bottom of the dot to chasing the puck carrier who catches it on the half wall. And watch Ekblad. He's going to go at him. The pass is going to get sent down low. And you would think in this situation, right, if you're rotating on the penalty kill and you're playing a box, which the Panthers are, what this means is, okay, Ekblad, you stay here. Forsling, maybe you stay here. Reinhardt here. Rodriguez maybe here. You maintain your box where you are now. You don't need to rotate anymore. Just play the current position of the box that you're in. But Ekblad decides, oh, fuck that. Fuck that. Look at him. Look at him, bro. He gets his eyes locked on Doan. He's going to go from the blue line all the way down to the goal line, skating, trying to throw this hit. Where are you going? This happens because you skate on a beeline to throw a hit on Josh Doan that you didn't need to, putting yourself out of position, skating through your goalie stick, and creating chaos that wasn't necessary. Like, when I was watching this, I'm like, all right, maybe Bob shouldn't have stuck his stick out. Like, why did he do that? Well, it made sense why he did that. And then I was, like, kind of playing through the motions in my head. And then I saw it from the overhead view again. I'm like, what the bloody fuck is Ekblad doing? Like, like, what are we doing here? An absolute bloody circus, man. Like, where is he going? Why did he feel the need to throw this hit? Like, even in the event that Doan continued this way instead of spinning and throwing this pass, Reinhardt is going to meet him on this side of the post. He had no reason to gun down like that. None. What the fuck, man? Like, horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Like, this is dysfunction at its finest. And then for the 5th and final goal, we have another 2-on-1 that is developing, and the Sabres take advantage. It's kind of similar to the first goal, backdoor pass that gets shoveled into the net on an odd man rush, very similar to the second goal. The difference with this one is I think he actually plays it a lot better and kind of just gets unlucky. So Krebs is skating in. He takes it at a specific tempo because he's trying to wait for his teammate to, you know, fly in on the far side. He wants to set up the pass, obviously, just like I always want to fucking do. And he's literally got his tongue out, focused, staring at him. Like, this is pass the entire way. The second that Krebs enters the zone, like, he is looking past the whole way. And similar to that earlier goal on that other odd man rush, his defenseman flies in to force Krebs' hand just like the defenseman flew in at Dahlin and forced his hand into making that backdoor pass. It's basically the same thing. And you can see Bob in this case, he's a bit deeper at this point in the play. He is a bit deeper. It's kind of hard to tell from here, but he's not toes top of crease like he was that last time. And this allows him to C-cut and really try to get there by cutting down the space as much as possible. There's a lot more cheating. There's a lot more reading on Bob's part for this goal. And he actually does get there on time. It's just that the shot is like so perfect to the point where it goes, like he's there, his arms are there, but it goes under his hand and over his pad somehow, despite the fact that his arm and leg were there on time. It was just like legitimately perfectly placed. So I'm going to give it a 1 because I do think this was a very stoppable puck. I do still hold some of the same principles in the back of my mind that tell me, like, you know, this is so obviously a pass. We gotta do something here to be ready to explode to that back post. We gotta do something here to be able to get there because the deception's gone, man. You know what's gonna happen. We gotta find a way to put ourselves in better position than desperation to be able to get to that back door. That'll do it for game number 6. I feel like I don't have to point out the theme any further, but every single wrap-up I've had some reference to Drake as the background. And now I think it's cool that I'm, wrong thumb, sitting next to him on the CN Tower here. This is a really, really cool moment, me and Drake, best buddies sitting on top of the CN Tower together. But anyway, game number 6 here. I think this was the worst game he played to date. There were not really any big saves at all. There were a lot of goals that he let up that were very preventable. I think he had a lot of moments of very poor judgment, very poor anticipation. He grades out to a 7.5 out of 15. Now, I didn't watch every game of his this year, but this has to be up there in terms of like worst performance in 2025, 2026. Just from a sheer statistical perspective, he had 20 shots on goal and he gave up 15. Or he had 20 shots on goal and he gave up 5. And I thought a lot of the goals were not great, and he didn't even come up with like a big save or anything in this game that I saw. Man, like this was a really, really, really bad one. No matter what way you try to approach it from. Now for the first game of the final quarter, this would be game number 7. This is the first game of quarter 4 against the New Jersey Devils. This would take place on March 3rd. 2026, the 43rd start of the season for Sergei Bobrovsky. Getting close to the end of the season here. 3 goals on 31 shots in a loss. So let's have a look at what went down in this game. This first goal is an odd man rush going the other way after a turnover in the neutral zone, and the forward keeps it instead of passing and rifles it to the short side. Now, I want to start by saying that this was about the 8th high-profile opportunity this period that he faced, and this was the first goal he allowed. He was playing out of his fucking mind in the first period of this game. Like, he made big save after big save, big stop after big stop. He was moving all over the crease in so many crazy ways. He was reaching pucks that he wasn't reaching in games we've watched prior. Like, he was playing out of his mind. And he finally cracks on this one, but it's another great play. Florida's just like getting steamrolled early in this one. And this is an excellent play on 81's part here. So similar to like the goals before, we see this tempoed approach from the forward, but you can see how fast they're able to change their mind, right? He's looking past very early. He's definitely trying to make something work over there. Given that's, Jack Hughes and he's in one-timer formation, but he analyzes the situation enough to know he is a problem and he is a problem. So he's going to try and sell pass for as long as possible. And then what he ends up doing is pulling it back quickly the second that this defenseman bites in. That gives him the green light to fire it. And he's able to just so subtly pull it just out of the reach of this defenseman and then just absolutely rip a shot over Bob's shoulder. I have some sympathy for Bob on this one, not just because of how he was getting peppered and how many saves he made leading up to this, but he also kind of gets screwed because this defenseman's kind of playing in the middle, and then out of nowhere, he lunges at the forward, which ultimately does force him to take that shot. And that is what the defenseman should do. I mean, we were getting closer to the net to the point where it makes sense to really lunge there. So it just is tough because you don't know when your defenseman is going to do that. You don't know when the forward is suddenly going to decide, okay, I have to, quickly release this to the short side, and it's going, 85 miles per hour to the top right corner. Maybe this is just a me thing though. I think I do play this in more of a, in more of a traditional 2-on-1 fashion is what I'm trying to say, right? Like we see Jakub Dobeš take situations like this where he knows, defensemen get passed, goalie gets shot, and he is putting all of his focus onto the shooter to the point where he is, he's further out to challenge. Like Bob is not bad positionally speaking. This is usually where he lives. Toes top of crease is where Bob really lives. I just kind of wish he would decide here, okay, I probably should just get a little bit more aggressive. Let me go heels top of blue instead. And then maybe he's able to get a shoulder on this. But honestly, he's not really the most aggressive goaltender. If you've been paying attention throughout the course of this video, he does not come out too far very often unless it is just a flat-out one-on-one breakaway. Otherwise, like the furthest he comes out is toes top of blue in all sorts of situations, to be honest with you. And I feel like he needs to be a little bit more flexible with that rule. And I think this is one of those exceptions where you got to trust these guys to play the pass, and you just got to sell out, be a lot more aggressive here than I think he was. But nonetheless, I'm going to give it a 1. Goal number 2. I'm just going to play it at first, and then we'll break it down because there's just a lot that kind of goes on. It's a bit of a fluky-ass goal that really just... It really sucks the wind out of your sails. Like, you could be playing so well in a game, and that's the type of bullshit that they're getting. It's like, can I just catch a break, man? Anyway, the first thing I want to point out about this goal is that if you watch Bob while he's tracking, I think that's Bratt. Is that Jesper Bratt, maybe? I don't know. But anyway, if you watch Bob, he kind of does that backside push thing that I talked about in my last video with Allmark, where he, like, follows it with his body more than he does with his feet. And then you can see, like, he then gets square by, circling back. I thought that was a bit interesting. Like, I think it's more of a thing than we really realize. But anyway, just as I say, Bob is not as aggressive as I would like him to be at times. He does a good job here, I feel like, getting out to this pass to Hughes. He sees this pass go across to Hughes, and he doesn't just go, toes top of paint. He goes heels top of paint, which is what I was suggesting he did on the last goal. So I do finally appreciate that he does that. It's funny, just as I say, I wish he was more aggressive than this next goal is. He is more aggressive. It's just unfortunate the way this bounces. Like, what the fuck is that, man? That's got to be the most ridiculous bullshit I've ever seen. Like, you're telling me it's very rare that I feel like I see a shot from here bounce off the boards perfectly the way it did to end up in a goal like this. Like, usually, whenever this happens, it's a, shot from the point. I've talked about this before where it's like, defensemen, if they don't have a direct lane to fire it to the net, sometimes they'll purposefully shoot it wide so that they'll get a bounce, like in a V formation, to the back door, and they'll have somebody sitting on the back door, and then it's an easy, slam dunk. Sometimes defensemen purposely miss for that reason. Hughes didn't miss on purpose. He just happened to miss. It hit the perfect spot on the yellow and then bounced back out to Hamilton on that same side, and he just dunks it. The third and final goal of this game comes halfway through the second period, so he's able to shut him out the rest of the game from this point forward. But it's a mad scramble in the Florida end. They're all jumbled up. It's 5-on-5, and they're getting hemmed in their own zone, getting passed across the top of the blue line. It's thrown to the net, and of course, what happens when the puck gets shot from the point? Good things usually happen. Deflections happen, screens happen, and a blind squirrel finds a nut. Pretty frequently in situations like this, and the Devils do. Something that I will show because it's in my recording is that right before this all happened, Jesper Bratt got this opportunity in front that Bob is able to desperately... He knocks the puck off of Bratt's stick as he tries to jam it to the short side. So he makes that save off rip. And then what happens on the goal here is Bob is trying to see through the bodies. He's got glass right in front of him. Ekblad's kind of there. Forsling's at the point in front of the shooter. So he's like looking over glass. And then he ends up kind of looking to the right of glass, which I think is a questionable decision for the sheer fact that this is a shooter on his, he's a left-handed shooter, right-handed shooter to the left side wall. So, the shot's most likely going to come to this side. So you want to be looking over there. And he gets caught, like, cross-looking, if you will, where he's looking this way. Then the shot comes, and he has to then swivel his weight, his head, and then also read the shot at the same time. But it does get deflected. But it also gets deflected right as he gets there. The only thing I could say is that maybe if he's not looking the way he's looking, then if he's not looking this way, then maybe more of his body would be shifted that way, and then his body he would see the shot better. He'd be more prepared to shift into it, maybe more than just his glove is right there to try and make that save. He really has no coverage at all when trying to fight off that deflection, but it still is a tough one. It's still a tough one to really do much about. And he's also got glass, like, right in his lap. Like, this was kind of what I was talking about earlier when, like, you got a forward right in your grill and you want to do something about it. What he did last time was he tried to, get that stick under the Utah player's knee and pull out his knee and try to trip him up. Here, like, I get he's probably super focused on the puck, but this is also a scenario where a goalie like myself, I'm taking my glove and I'm not punching him, but I'm going to place it on his back and I'm going to push him. I'm going to push him forward. And then I'll maybe, give a couple whacks with my stick to his ankles, anything just to get him out of my way. Something I also do, which I don't think is applicable to this situation, but I'm going to talk about it anyway, is that whenever I see a guy in front of me like this, and I know they're trying to go for a deflection, I'll use my stick to try and time a stick lift on the player in front of me so that maybe I can disrupt the deflection and then just face the shot straight on as much as possible, because I know the deflection just really reduces my chances of making the save. So I'll try to time a stick lift to get a clean look at it. I don't think he really has an opportunity to do it here because Glass's stick is kind of out in front of him, but that's something that I'm going to talk about at some point later in the future. But yeah, this is going to be a 0.5 only because I feel like he could have done a better job at getting more coverage to that side of the shot, more coverage than just his glove. But anyway, still a very difficult shot to stop. That will do it for game number 7, where he got a grade of 1.5 out of 9. I think the grade reflects how well he played, and I think the film definitely tells that same story. I thought he was tremendous in this game from start to finish. Like I said, he shut them out after the halfway point of the second period. Even the few goals he gave up were not his fault, really. And I think this was the best game he played that we watch in this video. No spoilers, I guess. But throughout the course of the season even, I wouldn't be shocked if this game was up there with one of the best he played all year long. Obviously, I only watched 8 in depth like this, but, he played that good. There were a lot of that good of saves in this game where he was moving like vintage Bob, bailing out the Panthers left and right. And it was a showing that you really are like, man, that's Bob. That's Bob. So 1.5 out of 9 is what I get to here. And to wrap everything up with game number 8, the last game of the video, the second game of quarter 4, we have against the New York Rangers in New York at the Garden, the 49th start of the season for Sergei Bobrovsky, where he gave up 2 goals on 21 shots in yet another loss. Wins were tough to come by for the Panthers this year, so this isn't shocking. But anyway, let's take a look at this first goal. It's a bit corny. Little disclaimer, there's not much to really take from it. This puck gets thrown around, and then it's going to get shot to the net. It hits a leg, and it deflects into the net. You're going to have to take my word for it. Bob does everything right from a depth perspective, from a movement perspective. He's there on time. He's at an appropriate depth. It's just one of those goals, man. Adam Fox is going to shoot it to the far side of the net, or the far side of the corner, really. Like, this shot was on a trajectory well toward the corner, as you can see, and it all of a sudden is going to go from here to then, getting kicked into the open net. Not on purpose, but it does go off a leg. It does change direction, super in tight, to the point where there's really not much you can ask Bob to do at all. I mean, he tries to even get there, and I think it might go under his arm. It's really hard to tell because we don't get the best camera angles of this goal either, which is why I'm kind of like nonchalant about it. But at the end of the day, there's really not much you can try to take here from a teaching perspective or a critical thinking perspective. It's just one of those garbage-ass goals that goes in the net. That happens in hockey all the time. It's a 0. For the second and final goal of the video, this comes with about 9 minutes left in the third period. The Rangers are up by 1, and the Panthers are on the power play with 10 seconds left. But, of course, a breakaway is going to come out of nowhere for Connor Sheary, I think it is, and he fires it right under the arm of Sergei Bobrovsky, and that goal pretty much puts the Panthers away. They had a power play, couldn't cash in on it, then give up a shorthanded goal. Yeah, that's the nail in the coffin. Unfortunately, the camera angles for this goal aren't great either, which is rather annoying, but I still had some good takeaways. Like I was talking about before, Bobrovsky really only comes out and is ultra aggressive when it's a breakaway like this to some degree, and he does it again. In fact, I wrote down that he came out to Timbuktu. Now, I don't know if this is actually further than where he's been coming out. It feels like it. It certainly looks like it. But nonetheless, he's ultra aggressive here. He does a good job of reading the situation. He sees that he's got some help crashing into the lane for Sheary. So he understands that at some point Sheary's going to run out of time before he gets to the net, so he has to take a shot, which is why I think it's good that Bob is out so far to cut down that angle. But what you have to do when you are this far out is you have to seal up. You have to seal up the holes, because the further out you are, the bigger the holes will get to the shooter. Like, the bigger the under the arm and the leg, between the legs holes get, because, like, the rest of it is getting taken away. But now, what does the puck see? If you're not, sealing up well enough, the puck will see the holes that are closer to it. And this one is going to beat him between the arm and over the pad in the 6-hole, or whatever people like to call it. And he just rails it between that spot, and he's unable to squeeze it. I think he plays it right, like, across the board. It's just, a good shot beats him, doesn't make the save, and this is kind of like what I mean by, like, as far as a breakaway goes. Sometimes you just get beat by what the shot looks like, and otherwise you did what you could, and you just weren't as good. You did what you could, but you just weren't as good. So I'm going to give it a 1.5. I think he does everything right, but sometimes you just got to make a save. Like, you got to finish the play, man. You can have a great drive to the basket. You can set up a beautiful passing play that gets you open under the rim. But if you got to deal with a little bit of contact and you got to finish, the rest of it don't matter. And that's kind of how I feel about this one. Just got to finish the play. So a 1.5 is where I'm at. This game, kind of a lame finale. He only had 21 shots on, and he really didn't get tested too much from, like, a quality perspective either in this game. So it's not the best finale of all time. I thought Bob did his job. Only giving up 2 goals. He made a few nice saves, but there weren't many times where I felt like he was really, really tested. So he did what he could. That's kind of what I felt about this game. And otherwise, they just didn't get the goal scoring. I think they lost this game 3-0 with an empty netter, maybe just 2-0. Goalie does his job in a game like that. So not much to write home about from a Bob perspective, but this is a sick picture. I think this was this in Toronto? I could be wrong. I think this might have been in Toronto. Drake was performing for the All-Star game. Sick jersey. I want that jersey. Is it the 75th anniversary jersey? Sick jersey, I might add. All right, let's put a bow on this thing. Let's come to some conclusions and really wrap it up. And what better way to do that than with Drake and the Toronto Maple Leafs mascot? This was the perfect picture for this video. But anyway, let's look at some of the overall numbers first. And before looking at my sample size numbers, let's just talk about the numbers he had on the season in total. So he played 52 games this year, started in 51, did have a winning record at 27-23, despite us not looking at too many wins. But most importantly, his save percentage was a .877, and his goals against average was 3.07. The more damning evidence was the advanced analytics. So even if you were a traditional box score watcher and you thought advanced analytics were garbage, well, the advanced analytics would actually agree with you in this case. On Money Puck, out of 98 qualifying goaltenders, which is just any goalie that started at least one game, which can be narrowed down to not look as bad, but out of 98 goaltenders, Sergei ranked 90th in terms of goals saved above expected. He gave up negative 12.2 goals above expected, which in layman's terms, in just regular terms, means he gave up 12 more goals on the season than expected. So not only did he not save any above expected, but he was comfortably in the red. That's about 4 games worth of goals that he gave up per his goals against average, more than he should have. And Linus Ullmark is actually right down here too, at negative 12.8. He's 91, so also not good, but he played great in the playoffs. so it's okay. But now let's actually look at the numbers from our sample size, what we looked at today, because we already knew all of those numbers. That's why we were answering the question of, is Sergei Bobrovsky actually washed? And we're answering the question of, does he get the Maple Leafs back into the playoffs and beyond the first round? Like, all of those numbers are what drove me to make this video to begin with. So let's look at the numbers that I put together. So obviously, we reviewed 8 games. He faced a total of 202 shots in those 8 games with 27 goals allowed. That would be 175 saves with a save percentage of .866. So he actually walks away from our sample size with a slightly worse save percentage. He had an average goals against of 3.38, which is obviously also going to be worse in our sample size than what he had on the season in total. His total goal review grade comes out to a 31.5 out of 81. His average grade per game is 3.94. But some sort of redemption here. The number that I feel like is most important, which is the average grade per goal, came out to a 1.17 out of 3. So his average grade per goal was a 1.17, which is good. It's closer to 1 than it is to 1.5. It's closer to 1 than it is to 2. It's closer to 0 than it is to 3. So really not that bad. That would come out to what I would call the percentage of maximum blame of 38.9%. That is not bad. Not bad at all. Though you want that percentage number to be closer to 0. You want it as low as possible. And to be at 38.9% is not horrible whatsoever, given what the other numbers would suggest. And if we go ahead and take a look at my handy dandy goal review sheet, which is available in my Discord server, if you join that link down in the description, this is where I've been putting every single grade for every single game that I have watched, like on my channel's history, into this sheet. So I'm building up like a big like database, if you will, of every game I've watched to really build some cases for how I feel about some goalies. Now, it's in its infant stages, of course, but when you compare, we watched 8 games of Bobrovsky. We've watched a similar number for a lot of guys that are on this list, and he comes in at 1.17 for his average grade per goal, which would rank tied for 6th right now on this list. And that's not really filtering out guys that I have not watched enough of. Like Spencer Knight, I have 1 game watched. He's at the top. And, same thing for Lucas Dostal. He is number 6. I've only had 1 game watched. So if you filter those guys out, then he's more like 4th or 5th or something. So compared to the other guys I've watched, that is not bad. That is not bad, chat. Like I said, this is available in the Discord. There's a lot of other cool things. Every single game I've ever watched, you can get the link to. In this right column here, I have every grade given up. It's really cool. So go check this out. But yeah, I mean, compared to who else I got on there, 1.17 grade per goal, average grade per goal, not bad, guys. But fuck all the numbers. We're gonna just get to the answer. Is Sergei Bobrovsky actually washed? How do I actually feel? What's the actual answer? In my opinion, the great Bobrovsky, who we all know and love athletically, is still there. He moved around and exploded around the crease, making all sorts of body contorting, crazy saves all year long. In all of the games I watched, for the most part, there was at least 1 or 2 saves where I was like, yeah, man, he still has it. Like, he's moving around the crease at a rate of speed. He is still flexible in ways that he's always been. Nothing about his physical play looks like he lost a step. But the great Bob we know and love mentally, I think, is what comes and goes. I didn't see a goaltender out there that, like I said, lost a step physically, which is usually what you're talking about when you're referring to a player being washed. It was just more so a goaltender that I was like consistently questioning his decision making, his anticipation, his ability to stay ahead and read a play. I was finding myself questioning all of those things more than I was anything physically limiting. It doesn't help that Florida was bad this year, and I think he got left out to dry a lot, and it amplified how bad his really bad nights were. Like that Sabres game, for example. I think, he got left out to dry pretty frequently, and when he was having a bad night, and it was amplified. But then you look at a game like the Devils game, where he was getting left out to dry constantly, but he was standing on his head, and he was playing extremely well, and he was up to the task. So Bobrovsky, to me, I don't think he's washed. I think washed is the wrong word. I think he's certainly not the goalie he used to be. I think that's safe to say. But if the question is simple as is Bobrovsky washed or not, the answer is no. And to get into the second question of does he get the Maple Leafs back into the playoffs and beyond the first round and kind of get them back to where they're trying to get to, the answer is kind of boring, but the answer is it certainly depends. It depends on the vibe of the Leafs. Bob himself isn't at a stage in his career where he can carry a broken team to the playoffs, starting 50-plus games anymore. And that was kind of what they were trying to get out of him last year in Florida. That team was broken. The Panthers were not the team they typically were used to being. And Bob was, like I said, left out to dry a lot more. And we were seeing a lot of volatility in his performances. So you can't throw him into the fire like that and expect him to drag you out of it. There will be games, though, that I still think he can steal for you. I think there will be games where the Leafs will need to bail him out. And for what it's worth, I feel like the Leafs defensive core in front of him this year, going into it from a preseason perspective, looks a lot better than what it's looked like in years past. We'll see if Tanev is able to be healthy. I know he's older. The whole Riley situation is a big old mess over there, but they do have Oliver Ekman-Larsson. They have OEL. They have Emil Andre. I think that's how you pronounce his name. They made that big trade for Darren Radish, of course. So they do have a bit of a defensive boost in front of him. I think the guys in front of him in Florida were lost a lot. They weren't great. Those are more offensively driven guys anyway. I think we have a few guys here in Toronto that can protect him a little bit better. Although to get into the Leafs a little bit more, to further answer this question, this was a broken organization last year. And it was because their core four was fractured, players were hurt, relationships suffered badly, with Nylander and the coach and everything that went down, Berube. It contributed to the on-ice product, no doubt. So, on one hand, it's the good news is it can't get worse, right? Well, unfortunately, I think in this circumstance it can, and it might trickle down to Bob. The organization needed a medic. They needed somebody that could provide oxygen to this dying corpse that this Toronto Maple Leafs organization was really diluted down to. But instead of getting a medic, they go out and hire the NHL's most well-known local scumbag, John Chayka. If you don't know who John Chayka is, let's just say no one likes him. He's a dirtbag. He was suspended by the league, I'm pretty sure. He did some shady shit with the Coyotes a couple of years back. He ended up getting that organization in some trouble. They had to forfeit some draft picks, and he's just not a good guy. No one likes working with him. And it was such a controversial hire at the time, and I still don't understand why they did it. And this is the complete opposite of a leader is what this guy is. And, I think maybe if, a guy like Chayka can come into an already well-established room and make it better, I don't think this is the kind of guy that can, raise the floor back up. I think this is the kind of guy that just further plummets you into the ground. And the moves that they made this offseason, they feel more like desperation moves to get them back to where they were instead of just kind of taking a deep breath, taking a step back and trying to approach it in a way of all right, we might have a little bit of a rebuild in front of us, but that's okay. Instead, I feel like they went and made big moves to try and just undercut the rebuild. And I say this when talking about football all the time. Anytime an organization tries to undercut a rebuild or tries to take shortcuts in a rebuild, that is when the foundation will typically start to crack a lot faster and things will get a lot worse. Instead of just trying to accept their fate and rebuild from where they actually are, they overly invest in some players that they think can get them back to where they used to be when they're not that team anymore. You make hires that aren't good, and I think the Leafs are going to continue heading down the pipe they were before. Which I'm a Sabres fan. Good for them. But I think going back to Bobrovsky, this could lead to conversations, unfortunately for him, that won't be favorable. I think Sergei Bobrovsky is no longer washed, but I do not think the Leafs are in a position to protect him. I don't think they're in a position to allow him to frequently steal them games or make him look better than what he looked like last year. I would be I would be shocked if his numbers statistically looked that much better next year, if better at all. I think we could be getting into conversations where, should Stolarz be the guy and if he's healthy, and it could get into a big, long rabbit hole, and I think it sucks this is where Bob ended up from a career perspective because I don't think it's going to go well, but he also got paid a decent amount of money, so how bad could it be to play hockey at 39 years old, getting paid a lot? So, yeah, that's where I'm at. The big old question's answered. Bobrovsky himself is no longer washed. Is not washed. I don't think, though, the Leafs are going to get out of him what they are probably hoping to, and it's going to lead into a big old disaster. That'll wrap it up, though. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, share, comment, subscribe. Leave all your feedback down in that comment section. This was one of the more in-depth videos that I've done so far, and I loved putting it together. It took a lot of time, but I really feel like it came together as a nice, well-rounded product. So please, if you enjoyed it, it helps out a ton to show whatever support you can. Like I said before, I'm going to spin up some YouTube memberships in the near future as well. If you want to show support that way, I plan on making some bonus content for those people that do sign up for that. And also join the Discord, link down below. And I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.